Excellent. So let's kick it off again. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to the Champions of Human Resources Management program, our February 2025 edition. And as you can see, I am decking the red colors of Valentine as we celebrate the Valentine's Day this weekend, the season of love, and we bring all of that love and affection from all of us at Learning Impact to yourselves, to your families, and to your organizations. Love must be the final word, and it's a very important part of the thinking around positive organizations. So we want organizations where people can thrive, where they can flourish, where they can feel and be loved. So we're very excited about this season of love. Before we start, as usual, we welcome our new and old participants. We have a number of us here who have been steadfast members of this community and have participated here during the mentoring sessions, as well as on the WhatsApp group and other activities of this group. So thank you for staying with us. This is about our 15th or 16th edition over the last 1.5 years. And then, of course, we have some new people who are joining us. Welcome to you. I'm going to be putting up my slides now, just so that we have some direction in terms of what we are doing and how we are going to proceed today. All right. So as usual, it is a 1.5-hour session. Today we are focused on a differentiated approach to onboarding. Onboarding is part of the employee life cycle. It is also considered to be one of the high performance work practices that organizations enact in order to be able to drive positive outcomes, including job satisfaction, employee engagement, productivity, and of course, the results that our organizations want. So we are going to be exploring today's conversation around a differentiated approach to onboarding. As usual, before we start, we would do a bit of an introduction about our company Learning Impact for the benefit of those who are joining us for the first time, as well as a reminder and as a refresher to those who are joining us, who have joined us before. Our company Learning Impact is an Abuja-based firm that was established in 2010. My name is Omagbishe Baro, and I'm the founder of Learning Impact. Over the last 15 years, we have provided support to organizations in the private, public, and not-for-profit sectors in Nigeria in a number of critical areas: corporate training and coaching, strategy and organizational development consulting. We have also provided human resources tech solutions. We've built platforms and tools using technology, modern technology, to support organizations across various areas of the employee life cycle. We also focus a lot on e-learning and knowledge management, developing unique products and solutions in those areas of e-learning and knowledge management, especially in this highly digitalized world. So we are really taking advantage of that with different platforms, tools, and solutions for our clients. And of course, we are very proud of the work that we do in life skills education programs and resources, where we focus on children, youth, and families and empower them with resources, with books, with digital resources, with games, as well as educational programs for schools and families around a number of critical life skills areas. Because, of course, we believe that if we build the right foundation with life skills, then we will be able to prepare the talent for the future in the workplace. So that's a bit about our company, Learning Impact. Again, for the benefit of those of you joining us for the first time, as well as a refresher to those who have been with us. You can learn more about our company at our website, www.learningimpactmodel.com. And you can follow us on the relevant social media handles, particularly on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and on LinkedIn. So having spoken a bit about our company, Learning Impact, let's talk a bit about the Champions of HR program, this program. Essentially, the program is a network of young to mid-career human resources management professionals. And the idea is to provide them with mentoring and support so that they will grow and flourish in their human resources management careers. The core focus of this program is in helping human resources management professionals to build their strategic HR capabilities so that they can add value to themselves and to their organizations beyond the typical scope of HR as a very operational type of uh, function in the organization. So we are trying to create professionals and organizations and HR functionalities and departments that will be more strategic. The program consists, or this network consists of a monthly webinar that holds on the third Saturday of each month. So today is the third Saturday of February, and we have been doing this, like I indicated earlier, since October 2023. The network also includes an active WhatsApp group where we continue to network with each other to exchange ideas and for continuous learning and mentoring with each other. So that essentially, ladies and gentlemen, is a bit about the Champions of HR program. Again, valuable for those of us who are joining us for the first time, and of course, a good refresher for those who have been with us previously. So on that note, I think we have finished the basic introductions. I can see our participants, and I'd like to welcome each of you, especially from Victor to Abdul Salam, to Adenike, to Chibuzo, to Chidima, to David, to James, to John, to Kene, to Nathaniel, Ogechi, Olorunfumilayo, Oluwaseyi, Osamuyi, and Tracy. Welcome to the program for today. And thanks to my colleagues from Learning Impact, Joy, who is sitting behind Learning Impact Model as the host. Thank you. And we will jump right in to today's program. So remember, the subject matter is a differentiated approach to onboarding. Like I said at the beginning, onboarding is part of the employee life cycle, and it is also considered one of the high performance work practices that organizations through the human resources department enacts in order to create positive outcomes in terms of productivity and results for the organization. As always, our outline and learning objectives start with theoretical and empirical foundations. What is the scientific evidence that supports the importance of onboarding and some of the best practices in onboarding? We would explore those theoretical and empirical foundations. Then we would have a few reflections in terms of some experiences and principles around onboarding that sort of helped me to understand these theoretical aspects and also helped me and our company over the years to support our organizations, different organizations in the area of onboarding. Yeah, so we will be reflecting on some of those thoughts. Then we would talk about, I will introduce you to a three-part or a three-phase onboarding process that consists of preparing for onboarding, educating your new employees, and supporting your new employees. And that is how we will proceed to those three specific areas where we will focus on best practices in preparing for onboarding, educating employees, as well as supporting new employees. Onboarding is all about getting new employees to hit the ground running, and there is so much power in a well-crafted and well-implemented onboarding program because, I mean, think about it, that's exactly what you want. You really want new employees to hit the ground running, to understand the culture, to understand the expectations, to be able to use the tools, to understand the products and the services of the company so that they can do their jobs and do it well. So it is a very, very important part of the employee life cycle, like I said, as well as an important part of the high performance work practices that organizations enact in order to achieve results and goals. So like I promised, let's start off with a conversation around the evidence. HR is a science. We do research. What have the scientists, what have the researchers in the areas of human resources and organizational behavior and management science, what have they discovered? And what theories have they built that help us to understand the importance of onboarding and help us to reflect on some of the best practices that we should be implementing in order to enact onboarding effectively in our organizations. If I didn't say at the beginning, we would have opportunities for interactions, and I really encourage and welcome us to interact until such a time that we will pause and get a chance to ask questions and reflect, and I will throw some questions at you. We would really appreciate if you could put your microphones on silent because this is being recorded for the benefit of all of thousands of people who would want to watch this later on. Just if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have contributions, feel free to chat on the WhatsApp group. You can post your thoughts. No, not on the WhatsApp group, on the chatting platform here on Zoom. Feel free to post your thoughts and so on and so forth. And then, of course, when there's the opportunity for a pause, for some interaction or some reflection and discussion, I could pick up those questions as well as refer to the people who want to speak or to ask a question verbally, okay? So on the screen, theoretical background. There are many theories in the scientific world that try to explain the importance of onboarding and sort of give us some direction on where we should be going and what we should be doing. But what I have done this afternoon is just to focus on 4 of these theories. The first is organizational socialization theory, originally proposed by a gentleman Feldman as far back as 1976. And this theory really speaks about the importance of socialization process, that employees are able to adjust better to their roles when they are able to socialize, because of course we are social beings as human beings, right? And a good socialization process will help employees to adjust, to hit the ground running, and to deliver within the expectations of their jobs. So that's one theory. So it tells you why onboarding is important. Scientific evidence is there to support it. The job demands resources model is another theory that helps us to understand some of the concepts around onboarding and the importance as well as the practices in onboarding. It was proposed by Demaruti and a few of his co-conspirators as far back as job demands resources model focuses on providing employees with resources, that when you provide employees with the right resources, they are able to cope with the demands of their jobs, and it enhances the outcomes that they are able to achieve, right? So it's called the job demands resources model. Thirdly, we have one of the most amazing frameworks and theories that have ever come out of organizational behavior and the science of human resources management. It's called self-determination theory, developed by Deci and Ryan. And Deci and Ryan essentially say that all human beings, including employees in your organizations, yourself, myself, and everybody else, right, have an innate need for 3 things: autonomy, relatedness, and competence. So when employees come into our organizations for the first time, whether we like it or we don't, you can be rest assured that there are 3 innate needs that they have: a need for autonomy, to be able to do things by themselves and have some control; the need for relatedness, to be able to connect with other people; and the need to be able to display and use their skills, their competence, and their capabilities. So when you onboard people, you want to be thinking about these innate motivations that people have, and you want to be able to design and implement your onboarding program in a manner that draws on these innate motivations and needs that your new employees have. Finally, but not exhaustively, we have experiential learning theory proposed by Kolb in 1984. And experiential learning is one of the very powerful things that guides all of our work, for example, at Learning Impact, and hopefully in organizations around corporate training. It postulates that learning happens through a continuous cycle of experience, reflection, conceptualization, and experimentation. So what are we saying here? Onboarding is a learning activity. And if you want onboarding to be very effective, then you want to create or enact it through a process of experiential learning that includes experience, reflection, conceptualization, and experimentation. Their participants on the Champions of HR mentoring program today. These are a number of theories that provide the scientific basis for our conversations on onboarding and a differentiated approach to onboarding. Like I always try to mention, and if I sound like a nag, please indulge me. The reason why we always like to explore the theoretical background is that as human resources management professionals, one of the things that we would like you to do is the practice of evidence-based management. We don't want to
No chance now.
in our organizations just because of our gut feelings, just because it's a fad, just because it is trending, just because it's anecdotal, it sounds like it is the right thing to do. No, we don't have to do that. There is a body of evidence and research that have been developed over the years. Some of them have been conceptualized as theories like this that are really at the heart of understanding the relationships of different systems and different parts of organizations and the world. These theories are very well thought through and based on solid evidence. And it is this type of evidence that we want to use in our work. It is these types of studies and these types of scientific evidence that gives authenticity to what we do as HR people, because it is proven, it is there, it is well accepted. There are studies that show that these things work. So we should pay attention to this. It's one of the areas that I'm very passionate about bridging the gap between theory and practice, because there seems to be, unfortunately, quite a huge gap. Building on these theoretical foundations, I want to share a few quick thoughts about onboarding. And I imagine that you can see my screen and you are wondering at this point, what's going on at King's College main campus in Lagos? Well, that's King's College in Lagos, and that's my alma mater. That's the school I went to. And I got my first experience in onboarding from King's College, and I would like to tell that story. So in those days, as we say in King's College, when King's College was King's College, I find that statement very funny because um, King's College was created in 1909. If you met any old boy, throughout the history from 1909 to date, they would always sound like when they were there, the school was at its best. They would always say when King's College was King's College. I don't know if there's any King's College old boy here, but everybody always thinks that their time was the best time. So when King's College was King's College, let me continue my short story. When you came in Form 1, we came in JS1. We're one of the first people to start the JS system in the late 1980s. You would be given a document. Very interesting. You'll be given a checklist. The school song, you must know how to sing the 2, 3 verses of the school song. You must know the school logo, what it means. You must have a tie. You must have a pin. And then you must know the different houses in the school and the history of each house. And then you must also know the names of all the prefects and some of the oral traditions of the school, like how you respond to a prefect, what you do when you speak to a senior student. And all of those things are written down on a piece of paper. And guess what you're meant to do? You're meant to take that piece of paper with the names of all the prefects in the school and go from one prefect to another and get it signed. And you are given 1 or 2 weeks to complete this onboarding activity. Now, when you get to the prefect will ask you, sing the first verse of the school song. And if you don't sing it properly, he will not sign. Sometimes, if the prefect was a real difficult chap, he could give you a little knock on the head and tell you to go and learn the school song properly. So you would spend 2 weeks moving around, learning different aspects of the school and the culture, finding the prefect. So you have to be looking, who is the prefect? Who is the sports prefect? Who is the social prefect? Who is the school captain? who is a house prefect. And until you find everybody and they sign that thing, you haven't completed your onboarding. Interestingly, they didn't use the word onboarding. I can't remember what word they used. This is almost 30 something years ago. But whatever it was onboarding. And so when I came into the practice of HR and I came into organizations for the first time, I'm like, oh my God, this was exactly what happened in King's College many years ago. And I have taken some of those thoughts and reflections, fused it with some of the theory. And I would like to share with you as we proceed some principles and practices on onboarding. One of the first things that I think is critical is a realistic job preview. We spoke about this when we spoke about attraction and retention and selection of people. It's important that people have a realistic sense of the organization they are going into. When you are doing recruitment and you are doing selection of people, please give them a brutal, honest picture of your organization. If your organization, if people have to work weekends, late hours, holidays, tell people, tell prospective candidates, if there are certain rules, norms, expectations in the organization, tell people up front. The more honest you are about your job and your organization, the more likely you will find the right people. What will happen in a realistic job preview? Some people will hear this at an interview and they will say, this is not the type of organization for me. And they will move on. Some other people would hear it and say, yes, this is exactly the type of organization I want that will stretch me in this way, that will challenge me in that way, and so on and so forth. There is an appropriate job for everybody. But without realistic job previews, here's what happens. People come into the organization, yeah, then they leave very quickly. Exactly. Yeah, or some way, yeah, then they leave because, they're like, oh, this is not what I expected. But oftentimes, Osamu, what we find is that just like happens sometimes in politics, people think, oh, um, I thought they were joking when, when they said that this was the kind of I didn't really think they meant it. So sometimes organizations actually give a very realistic preview of the job, and the prospective candidates think, oh, don't worry, just like sometimes in marriage and relationships, don't worry, when we get there, I'll be able to turn my wife or my husband around. Well, it doesn't often happen. Miracles do happen. It's possible you can change the organization, you can change the elected official, the president, you can change your spouse, or that the person can change over time, but you don't really have so much control about that. So, organizations, please provide HR people, insist. In fact, here's my challenge as part of onboarding HR. Write a list of all the things that define your organization, not just from an employee value proposition or what we want to say we are good at. What is the reality of your organization? What type of people are there? What is the dominant culture of the organization? How do you guys work? What are the expectations of people? Write it all down and share it with people. Yeah. Let them know it. Let them accept it. And if they don't want, they can leave. But I assure you, every job, every organization has the right type of people. You just have to have a realistic job preview so that you will find those people. The other important thought about onboarding comes from a conversation I had many years ago with the distinguished professor Pat Utomi from the Center of Values and Leadership in Lagos. And he spoke a lot very enthusiastically and passionately over the years about the pedagogy of the determined, about the type of learning, the differentiated learning that happens when people are hungry, when people are ambitious, that determined people, who are the kind of people we want? I mean, you see, at the end of the day, there are some things that are standard in every organization. There is no organization that I have heard of that wants people who are laid back. No, it doesn't. If you have plenty of laid back people in your organization, but if you ask the founder, the promoters, the owners of that organization, what do they really want? Of course, everybody wants determined, hungry, and ambitious people because nobody sets up a business to be laid back, except, of course, you are what do you call it? You're a money launderer. Even money laundering is not exactly a laid back activity. So nobody really sets up a business to be laid back. The other day, I was saying to a group of people that I don't know any, and I may be wrong. I mean, there are 24, 25 of us right now, and potentially thousands of people watching this as a recording later on. Have you ever met the founder of a company who told the story of how they created a successful enterprise? And they said in that story that they were laid back, that they didn't push themselves hard. They didn't make sacrifices. They didn't have to work long hours and sometimes on weekends and holidays. I don't know if you've ever met such a person, or you've ever watched on TV, or seen a blog, or seen a podcast where somebody came out and said, I grew an amazing business or enterprise, including religious enterprises. I'm a Christian, so I mean, even the work of Christ in his mission on earth had many sleepless nights, many accounted for in the scriptures. So I don't understand how people then come into the organization and they say, oh, no, 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 I don't need to be hungry. I don't need to be passionate. I just need to do it gently, jeje. Patutomi says, onboarding should help people realize that what we want is the pedagogy of the determined. Another important principle that drives effective onboarding is community involvement. You want to get more people in the organization involved in onboarding. You want to get line managers involved, HR people involved, colleagues and peers in different departments involved, because we are social beings. Remember that theory about social learning and social organizations and so on? It's very important. And the double benefits of that huge community involvement, as you can see on the screen, is that you are building leadership capabilities. The more line managers get involved in onboarding, the more the line managers have leadership capability. The more employees across different departments get involved in onboarding, the more you build a leadership capability. So it is very critical that onboarding should not be seen as a HR activity. No. Or as an executive activity. No. It must be an activity that the entire community is involved in. And of course, because we are in the 21st century and there is a huge, the ubiquity of, let me speak some big grammar, since I remembered Professor Patu told me today, the ubiquity of technology, of information and communication technology and devices, and the high level of internet penetration only challenges us to leverage technology. Because if we use information and communication technologies very well, we can improve the scale and the sustainability and potentially the impact of our onboarding efforts. So these are just a few thoughts about onboarding. Building on some of those theoretical frameworks, I thought to share some of the practical realities, and starting off with that perspective about King's College and how we used to go around doing our own onboarding in the way we understood it back in the 1980s. So I would like to hear from you guys now. What are your thoughts? I've seen quite a number of comments coming from one of our participants, Osamui. Thank you very much for your comments. I can see, and you're thinking that we are thinking along the same lines. Yeah. So who else? Anybody would like to share thoughts? What do you think about these two things, the theoretical frameworks, some of these principles and thoughts based on experience and practice? Before we jump in, do you have questions? Do you have comments? Do you have clarifications you would like to make? Are there aspects of this stuff that you don't agree with? Because, it's important that we exchange ideas. You don't have to agree with everything that I say. It's important that I also understand your experiences and your perspectives. The floor is open. Who would like to kick off the conversations for the next 5 minutes or so? Yes, is that Olalikon? You'd like to share something? I see your microphone is on. We give out virtual chocolates to those who participate. So first of all, let me send the virtual chocolates to or some way. Enjoy your virtual chocolate. When you catch it, you unwrap it and you put it in your mouth virtually. You say, and you make everybody else jealous. Talk to me. Questions? Comments? Are you saying that if you leave this room now and somebody asks you, what are the theoretical foundations of onboarding and what are some of the principles that guide effective onboarding, you'll be comfortable to articulate and discuss all of these things? Yes? All right. So it sounds like it's either I'm talking to myself or you guys are so comfortable with the material so far that you like me to go ahead. Which of those options are true? One or two? Fastest thing. Uh, okay, so thank you, Kenneth. Thank you, Tracy, um, Osamui, and Susie, and others for indicating Mayowa. All right, so we'll go right ahead. So let's introduce you to the three-step um, process or the three-step model for onboarding that our research and our practice and our teaching over the years have sort of guided us to doing. So usually in the organization, when we provide organizational, so in our organization and learning impact, this is all the model that guides us. Over the years, the last 15 years, when we have provided solutions to clients in the areas of organizational development and helping them put in right structures and processes, human resources management process. These are the, this is typical model that we provide. And it's based on three things. Step one is you prepare for the onboarding. You educate or you expose. Step two, the new employees. And step three, you provide support to the new employees. Yeah. And I'm sure that in your various organizations, you do these things. You may not call it this name, you might not give it this fancy model and framework kind of thing, but I'm quite sure that in most of our organizations, we sort of build around these three areas. So how do you prepare for your new employees? Very importantly, you start by clarifying the job demands. Absolutely important. What are so before somebody comes into your organization, you finish the recruitment process and so on. It is absolutely important. It is absolutely important that you clarify the job demands in terms of the KPIs. What are the key performance indicators for this job in terms of the job description, in terms of what we now call the job scorecard? And of course, very importantly, the behavioral expectations for the employee. What are those behaviors? Hopefully encapsulated in a behavioral code for your company. You want to remember the job demands resource model. You want to tell people what the demands of their jobs are. Have that clearly articulated. So part of the preparation, and some of this, of course, information you may have used already and put together during the recruitment and the attraction and the selection phase. So you want to be very clear. Some of those things may also change over time. And you want to have the most current version of these things prepared for your new employees. You also want to prepare by providing work tools and resources, again, aligned with the job demands resources model and theory. You want to be sure the person has a desk, has a computer, has phones, other collateral, and other requirements that are required for them to deliver on their job demands. And of course, again, in our 21st century, with all of the ICT, we want to be also sure that we provide access to technology, whether it is emails, email accounts, shared folders, shared drives, and so on and so forth. If people are working remotely, and things like that, you want to clarify policies and so on and so forth. And you want to show all of those things are there. Tosin Festus Akonle is asking very good questions. What is a JSC? It's a job scorecard. Let me just write.
Scorecard.
Yeah? A job scorecard. And a job scorecard is something that came out of the research done by Bradford Smart, sorry, in his classic book around A players. What's the name of it? Top graded, how to build a top graded organization. So it's a very powerful tool of clarifying job demand and articulating job expectations that fuses the KPI with the job description, so that instead of a traditional job description that tends to be a bit flowery and a bit, ambiguous, you rewrite the job description as a job scorecard that describes the job the way a job description does, but also infuses the performance indicators into it. So that when you describe someone's job or a task, instead of saying, we expect you to make calls to clients, that will be part of a job description for a salesperson. A job scorecard will be written differently. It would say, we expect that you will make 50 calls a day to prospects and clients. So by imputing that 50 calls a number and each day a frequency or a timeline, then you sort of operated that concept of KPI job description. Yeah. So it just makes the description of jobs more honest and brutal, which is critical for success in the organization. Yeah. So these are things you can do to prepare your new employee. So that's the first phase. Okay. So do we have any questions, thoughts, comments, anything that we've missed out? There are things, what else should you have to prepare your employees?
I just have a question about the
Yes.
job. So I just feel like if we use a job scorecard as opposed to a job description, we're gonna have to keep updating this scorecard in line with your organization's strategic goals, because normally KPIs should align with whatever strategy the organization has each year. So if we're going to use this job scorecard, we have to continue updating it on a regular basis. Yeah.
Correct. That's a very good way of thinking about it.
Sounds like a lot of work.
But you see, yeah, and this is where the challenge is. You're very right, Tracy. But think about it this way, Tracy. This is where we have job descriptions that are dated, isn't it? You see it now. That's the flip side. So people come to the organization and have this job description that reads like old notes from a 1960s professor. As lecturers, they say we sometimes do the same thing we gave them in 1972. We are still giving them in 2025. And that's where sometimes we have problems. So yes, it is certainly more work. But think about the potential that you can have a document that really speaks to the current reality. Because Tracy, you would agree with me, and most of us who are thinking along the lines of Tracy and I's conversation now, that a lot of job description documents are often dated, and that creates some confusion. You say, oh, but my JD said this, but my JD said that. No, but and you see, everybody's always talking about their JD and holding on to it when there's problem. They say, but my JD didn't say this, my JD didn't say that. You guys are giving me wahala. And think about what you said, Tracy, very powerful, that it must align with the strategy. The strategy is changing maybe every year, every 3 years, and so on and so forth. So what does this also do? It helps that strategic alignment process so that everything around the organization, your KPIs, like you said, your job scorecard, everything is speaking to the strategy. So there's nobody who will say, oh, we don't know what the strategy is, or we don't know what the strategic goals of the company are, because everything around you is speaking to the strategy, including your job scorecard that is now replacing your job description. Yeah. But I agree 100% with you. It's certainly more work.
Okay. Thank you.
But that's the reality, Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Tracy. Excellent contribution. Anybody else? I see Angela's microphone as well as Olugbemiro. Would you like to share a thought around, what we discussed? No? Yes? One of the things I think we left out here, just looking at it, would be policies, maybe that will fall under clarifying the job demands. What are the policies of the organization, and the procedures, in your department, and so on and so forth. You want to ensure that, the policies are updated, they are in a place where the new employee would have access to it, and so on and so forth. All of those things are part of that amazing process of preparing for your new employees. Excellent. So let's move to the second. So you remember it's PES. So you prepared for the new employees. Now you want to educate and expose the new employees, right? So here's what we found. When you dimension the kind of educational experience or the kind of exposure that you want new employees to have, you want to be looking at 3 dimensions. You want to be looking at the technical. You see, every job has a technical element. And oftentimes, if people don't pay attention to the technical, the real core, the core technical information about the job, then they won't be able to function. Let me give you an example. In accounting, there are technical issues in accounting, as there are in HR, as there are in technology. I think my head of technology solutions, James, is here. So there are technical issues in what do you call it, in software development, in networking, in cyber security. There are technical issues in accounting. Our finance manager is here. There are technical issues about, balancing accounts, financial statement analysis, bank reconciliations. There are technical issues in every profession. So part of your employee onboarding should cover those technical issues, those technical topics. In addition, your employee onboarding should also pay attention to the functional topics. So what are those practical things? So beyond the technical aspects of the job, there are practical things. How do we do it in our company? How do we do it in this organization? Who are our clients? What products are we selling? All of those things are functional. So you look at every function. What's the procedures manual for our finance department? What's the procedures manual for our IT department? So you want to be sure that those functional topics are also covered in your onboarding. And then thirdly, you want to pay attention to the organizational topics that have to do with the entire organization. Who are we? What's our history? What are our values? What's our strategy, like Tracy was talking about? Who are our clients? What are our products? These are organizational topics, So you also want to pay attention to those topics. So there's quite a lot that needs to go into a well-crafted and properly implemented onboarding program. The first part of that exposure and education is, using that, scoping it in terms of the technical, the functional, and organizational. Here's what I find, that sometimes organizations tend to prioritize one of these over the others, or in fact, not pay attention to some of these. So what you find is that some people may end up, where, what do you call it? Where you focus too much on the technical, and then you don't pay attention to the organizational. I've seen that happen several times. Certainly seen where organizations pay a lot of attention to the organizational, talking about their values and all of those things, and assuming that the people have the technical and the functional understanding that is required for them to deliver their jobs. So the combination of these 3 are absolutely important, and it's possible through your own experience and research. You may even have something else to add. So please, if you do, let us know. Send it on the chat, or hold on for when I give you the opportunity after, my brief remarks now, and we can hear from you in terms of, is there something else that we should cover apart from the technical, functional, and organizational topics? Then we also strongly recommend the use of a checklist. Like, what exactly do you want? Remember that experience from King's College? What exactly do you can't put everything on a checklist, right? But what is the universe of things that you would like your new employees to be exposed to? you want to be able to articulate those things, write them down, yeah, so that people can actually be guided by that checklist. Okay. And then finally, but not exhaustively, you want to be able to use technology. And this is part of the beauty of technology. One of the things we find now that organizations are doing a lot, is the use of videos. Use videos to drive your onboarding. Create a learning management system. Put things on shared drives. And the power of technology is so amazing because now you can, like when we identified some of the best practices, the principles, you can scale your onboarding. Think about companies that are dispersed across the world in different locations, in different places. You can actually now, run the onboarding, in different locations, and people can learn at their own pace, and people can, what do you call it? Can even get refreshers, of the things that they have learned, and that increases the sustainability, you know, of the onboarding program. So it's absolutely important that we try to use technology and incorporate e-learning into our onboarding process of educating and exposing our new employees. So what are your thoughts? What do you think around the things that you can do to educate and expose new employees? What do you think about those three areas of technical, functional, and organizational topics? Yeah. I see a comment here where someone says, I once saw a company where I was told they didn't promise to give me work tools, that I should have a laptop of my own. Well, I wish they had said that to you during the recruitment phase so that it would have been part of the realistic job preview. Isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So that at least you'll be prepared. They say, look, when we're interviewing you, please note, we don't have computers to give, and somebody commented that it's typical of the civil service. Yeah. Uh-huh. And of course, the rebuttal is that this actually happened in a private firm. So that's part of reality. Sometimes I know that it depends on, clearly we've seen where people call, nowadays there's this whole concept of, there are two things that may be driving this. One may be hybrid work. I mean, sometimes it's because the company just doesn't have the resources for it. It could also be a case of hybrid work. And it could also be a case of, because if you are working like hybrid or you're working like part-time, or sometimes people who work as pseudo consultants, there's so many nowadays, jobs are not as straight cut as they've always been. I'm not making excuses for this, but I'm giving you some scenarios in which, you may be in a pseudo consulting role, where, you are working, like a timeshare, yeah, you're working a little here, you work a little there, work a little there. So the organization says, look, we know that it's not only us that you are working for, you are a gig worker. So in your various gigs, figure out how you would, get a computer and equip yourself to do your work. But of course, in this situation, it sounds like it was a full-time job. It wasn't hybrid, nor was it a gig job, but that's the reality. It would have been nice if it was discussed so that you wouldn't have been surprised. Any other thoughts on educating and exposing your new employees? Those three dimensions, the use of a checklist. So how many of us are using checklists? We use playbook for onboarding to reduce downtime. All right. So what is this playbook? Is it like can you tell us what it is? What's the concept of a playbook? We'd like to learn from you. Yeah, while waiting for Dickens. Dickens mentioned something about a playbook. Maybe we can learn from that example of a tool to reduce downtime. Finally, you've got to support your employees. And there are many things that we can do in the onboarding process to provide support. Organizations have enacted programs like a buddy program, a mentoring program, where new employees come in and they are assigned a mentor. you know. A very important part of supporting your employees is you've got to track the progress. And this is a very important HR responsibility. So if you give people a checklist of all the things that they are meant to learn, and it's even employee driven, that's a very good way. Remember the pedagogy of the determined. Remember the King's College example. You came into an organization, the organization expects you to be hungry, to be ambitious. So they give you a checklist. They say, go and learn. So it is no longer spoon feeding you. You see, a lot of organizations traditionally have spoon fed new employees. Yet, these people, when they wrote their CV and wrote, I beg to apply, they said, sir, dear ma, I am hungry. I am ready to work. That's what nobody writes a letter of employment, job expression of interest and says, I am laid back. I'm very relaxed. If you don't tell me what to do, I will not do it. No, everybody on their cover of I've never seen it. Have you ever seen it on someone's CV at the top summary? They will say, I'm laid back, I'm a couch potato. No, but yet they come into the organization somewhere having a good laugh. And they start to tell you, well, I wasn't expecting this level of intensity of work. But when you check their CV, you say, I'm ready to hit the ground running. Everybody bragging about things that they have no idea about, and that's our reality. So you as an organization, you need to change the mindset. So we believe in the principle of an onboarding that is driven by the employee. Let the person go and learn. If you say you want to drive change in our organization as you promised in your letter of application and expression of interest, go ahead, do it. Go and look for it. Be like the King's College boy in JS1. Be hungry and pursue it. Then after a while, we will track your progress. Then we will evaluate. Part of the process is evaluate. You call the person, like in King's College, you call the prefect calls you, says, Barrow, come here, sing the school song. Yes. So part of that process that HR has to be able to enact is, how do you check with a new employee? Well, tell us about our values. Talk to us about our products. You must evaluate. You must test that this learning process is working. If not, you are leaving it to an assumption that because someone has gone for what they call it, a training program, an onboarding program, that the person has learned. No, you want to put it to the test. And you have to challenge the new employees and give them the feedback that, look, oh boy, oh girl, we gave you this thing out of 10 areas. You have not been able to learn 5. That's not what we expect. Refer them back to their CVs. Yeah. And let them check, because on their CV, they said they were hungry. They were going to hit the ground running. You're not showing me hunger right now. A hungry person will have spent the midnight oil, burnt the midnight candle, reading our values, reading our policies. If you are hungry, yeah. So we all want hungry employees. Employees all want us to believe that they are hungry. But onboarding, if done properly, can show us that some people are not the appropriate fit. Yeah. And of course, use it as an opportunity to challenge line managers and bodies. Because if the line managers are not able, so think about it. If the prefects in King's College are not able to pass down the traditions, the culture, and the expectations of the school to the new students, then there's a problem. Then the prefects have failed. So put it in the school, in the company perspective, the same thing. The line managers, the mentors, the bodies that have been assigned to them, if they don't do it, then they are also not doing their work well. So it is absolutely important that we pay attention to not just preparing for the new employee, not just exposing and educating them, but also creating a system that provides support and challenges, not just the new employees, but the entire organization. Because when you do onboarding properly, you are continuously enriching the culture of the organization. The more we onboard new people, the more things become clear. Line managers now say, oh, I didn't know that before. Yes. Oh, I didn't know this policy before. I didn't know that's what it meant. I didn't know that's what was expected. Aha. So now the onboarding is having a deeper impact, not just on the new employees, but on the entire organization. Yeah. Dickens, thank you for sharing the information about the playbook. So he has explained So it's a checklist, SOPs, organizational information, and of course, conducting a test and so on and so forth. These are powerful things that we can do to ensure that we onboard our employees in a different way. Yeah. So what do you think? I want us to have some conversations now. What do you think?
Okay, so things like getting like your employees details for their payroll and benefits, pension, all those kind of things, they fall under onboarding, right?
Yes, correct. So providing all of that information, right?
Yeah, so where does that fall under in your
So if you look
structure?
at the frame, yeah, so it will be under the P, the preparing,
Preparing,
so
okay.
where you clarify the job demands, right? So
Okay.
what are all the other things, that the organization wants from people? And then when you talk about the organizational topics here, so all of those things are also part of the organizational topics. Everybody needs to have a pension account. Everybody needs to know how this is calculated, how these benefits are, and so on and so forth. All of those fall under these organizational topics that you would have prepared for um, before the new employees come. Yeah, great.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Questions? Comments? Yeah?
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Good evening,
Go
sir.
ahead. Good evening.
So much for the work you're doing.
Olalekan, very well. Thank you. Go ahead with your question,
Right, sir.
comment.
So, sir, I really want to ask concerning the tools and all the resources that we can use for employee onboarding. So, I don't know which particular HR software that is in line with this onboarding that we can use, since we are in tech world now. So, if there is a way we can have a particular HR software that can help us to also do this properly. Uh, I also want to believe again that maybe the handbook, employee handbook, is also very important. So as we are doing the onboarding, as part of the books, I mean, they outline the policy of the company or the organizations. So it will also help the employees that are coming on board to know what is happening in the company.
Very good. And your both your question and your contribution are linked to each other. So imagine this, Olalekan, where you can take your employee handbook, right, and put it on what we will call a learning management system, an LMS, right? And in this LMS, you can track. You see, because here's what we found. We give people employee handbook. They say they have read it. Foul. They've skimmed through it. What you want is an in-depth understanding of it. So if you want to know if they really, why don't you take the employee handbook to answer your first question? The software you need is a learning management system so that you can automate learning. Now, some of us have learning management systems, but we are not using it in this way so that you can put several courses there. Take the handbook, strip it into different courses, and people go through those courses. We structure do an e-learning content around it. And this is something that we're very passionate about in Learning Impact, the use of e-learning for this type of organizational and onboarding training. So that when the person finishes module 1, the person will take a test immediately. And then we'll be able to see that two things, the beauty of technology, learning management system, is that you'll be able to see that the person actually completed module 1 and that and has been able to complete it. But more importantly, that the person has been assessed for module 1. Aha. Now you've completed it. You can be sure. So technology, instead of you going around every prefect as we did in King's College many years ago, we use technology as the prefect and problem solved. What do you think?
Fantastic.
Yeah. So what I would encourage you to is to explore learning management systems, LMS, and that's something that we offer at Learning Impact. My colleagues here, Victor, you can chat with Victor, Tahiru Victor, who is on the call, and it's certainly something that we can explore and talk about because that's a power. And some organizations have LMS, but they don't use it for that purpose, for onboarding. They don't use it for organizational inductions and so on. They just use it for other things. But I find we believe that, in fact, that's one of the most powerful ways to use a learning management system. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Gladiko.
Yes.
Yeah, Tracy, you wanted to say, go ahead.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Are there two Tracy's on the call?
No, not a problem. Go ahead.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Yes. Tracy, go ahead.
Okay.
We'll come back to.
All right. I just wanted to add on the thing about the LMS. So there are some organizations that do their onboarding before the new starter actually commences work in the organization. So if you're going to do it, use technology for your onboarding, would they have access to the business, LMS and other software if they haven't actually started? So is it not okay? So how would you do that now? Like if you're going to do an onboarding before they actually commence their day one, how does that happen? How does that work?
If you were going to do it, if you don't mind my asking, Tracy, if you were going to do it without technology, what would you have done?
Without technology, well, I'll just send out the soft copies of
the stuff to them, right?
Yeah, or hard copies, as the case.
Which is still some type of technology. But to answer your question, now that I understand the context better, I think that what you would do is, you give them access to it now. Have they signed on as employees? Have they agreed that they are coming to work for you?
Yeah, they signed their contract.
Exactly. So they are your employees in transition, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can give them access to we've done that many times, at least in our own company, so because what you want to do is you want them to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason why you are priming them before they start is because when they start, you don't have time for this type of stuff, right? Yeah. Proactive. So you have to put your money where your mouth is. So if that's what you want to do, if that's your intent, then give them access to the e-learning. Worst case scenario, you cut them off if they don't come. The same way we cut people off when they run away after 1 month of realizing that Mogbe is something Wala is plenty.
One chance.
One chance. There is what Patutomi used to call pure, previously unidentified recruitment error. This is a pure. Yeah. Thank you, Tracy. All right. Who was speaking? Or is it Adenike?
No, it's Angela.
Angela, please go ahead.
Good evening. Sorry, I had challenges joining, so I joined in quite late.
Okay.
But it's a topic that is interesting and refreshing. So on the learning management system you mentioned, yes. So the way to make it fun for people, because if you wait for them to read your book, your handbook, you wait forever. So what we started doing is take some key areas that you want, to put out there. You make it into a short learning in bits, short clips of video. So people go learn fast and then they understand immediately, and then they have to do this cross-check your understanding. That's the test evaluation. So we have all of that happening. And then for onboarding, the success factors, we have not fully started using that, but the idea is once you sign in as an employee, you start with the recruitment onboarding, there's the onboarding module. At the point of you signing in, accepting the offer, you're already giving a number. So you're an employee. So your onboarding begins online, with bodies assigned, your line manager and everything. So you're already integrated into the system. So it makes it easier for you, but we haven't fully started. So in the interim, what I do, once we offer, you accept, so we have templates of the information you need from this person, biodata, where the person gives all these details, including pension, all information you need to get. And then we also ask the person to give a 1-minute video telling us about yourself, why you think, what interests you have. Just 1 minute, it's not long. So the person sends it to you, and so you send that to your team members to say, okay, this guy is coming, and then you assign a body to the incoming person. The body knows that we're coming somebody after so time. So the integration is smooth with that. We found it a bit more interactive, and people feel welcome. And then after a month or so, we give a survey to the new person to say, with the checklist of their experience of how they were onboarded. So they give that feedback, and then if they have any suggestion to make, they also make that, and then we take it as a learning point to improve.
Excellent.
So that's my practice for now. And thank you so much. I know I will see this video and the slides later just to catch up from all that I've missed.
Excellent. Thanks for that very thoughtful contribution, Angela, enriching our conversations coming from your experiences. And this is what the Champions of HR group really is about, helping us to learn from each other and to learn together so that we can push the practice of human resources management to where it should be. Excellent. Thank you. Let's see. We have a few more people chatting. Yeah, let's see a few more messages. Yeah, so Samuel loves what you said. I have a question, Adako. What happens when the ongoing process due to some internal hiccups? Well, yeah, so hiccups happen. I mean, I'm sure even as Angela described her process, it's never perfect. It's part of what I would call pushing the wheel of progress, pushing the flywheel, So you keep at it. You ask yourself, what went wrong? What were those hiccups? Are they so fundamental that we should derail the entire onboarding? No. So what lessons can we learn? Just like she said, you do get some feedback. You assess the program. What worked? What didn't work? Was it a lack of resources? Was it a lack of time? Was it a lack of commitment and political will from the leaders of the organization or the HR people or the line managers? Were the bodies or the mentors, were they overwhelmed? So you look at every aspect, Adaku, of your onboarding program and you try to synthesize and find out the root cause. Use some of those skills that we taught when we did performance consulting. You are having a performance problem. Onboarding did not work. So what is the root cause of onboarding not working? Synthesize those root causes, get to the bottom of them, and then start to come up with a solution to overcome them. I think that will, there are always hiccups and I've given you just a few dimensions of the types of hiccups, isn't it? Yeah. And those things are real. It is for us to deal with them. But if we understand the theories and the principles, the research and some of this practice, we would see that onboarding is a major predictor of employee success. Employees who are thoroughly onboarded tend to do two things, and you can check out the research on this everywhere. Number one, they tend to stay longer in the organization. Number two, they also tend to be more productive. So onboarding is a key determinant of employee tenure, as well as job satisfaction, as well as productivity. And onboarding is a very good predictor of previously unidentified recruitment error. Because if you do the onboarding well, it will shake the new employee up so hard that the person may run away. Good onboarding should help you weed out the wrong people in the organization. One of my dear aunts, and I won't mention her name, but I will just tell the story, and I always give this example. Whenever she wants to recruit a housemaid, a new housemaid in the house, this was from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, my experience with her, she would tell us in the house to pile up dishes for 2 days. Don't wash any plates in the kitchen for 2 days. It's a strategy. You know what she's trying to do? So that when the new housemaid comes, her onboarding will be sky-high dishes to wash. So when she enters the organization, the house for the first time, if everywhere is clean and there's no work, she would think that, oh, I only wash one plate a day. Aha. When you've piled up plates for about 2 days, the first day at work, it's like this. It's war. That's very good onboarding. That's realistic job preview. A lot of people do it the other way. They say, oh, when the person comes, let's pet her. Let's pet him. You are under profiling the job. And that's dangerous. Because when the work now comes and the work is plenty, and you people are having parties in the house, and there are plenty of guests and plenty of plates and clothes to wash, then the housemaid is now saying, madam, this is not how we started, though. Madam, this is not what I expected, though. So I thought that, again, reflecting on the actions of my aunt many, many years ago, I always remembered it and have tried to incorporate it even in my work and my consulting with clients, that look, you really want to challenge people from the first day so that you figure out who can stay and who can cope. And the one that cannot stay and cannot cope will vamoose. They have the pure, previously unidentified recruitment error. And the ones who can stomach it, you keep them, you retain them, you know that they are the good ones, you incentivize them, you motivate them, and you flourish with them, and they flourish too. Yeah? Great. So look at those questions on the screen. James is sharing from his own organization. Thank you, James. Says we have technological triggers to remind exactly. So James is talking about some of that technology. Remember the learning management system, right? So to remind new joiners, to remind their bodies and supervisors of the key milestones. Yeah. Aha. All of these things, and this is from a financial institution because I see the word credit policy there. Yeah, exactly. So all of these things, can you see, for those of us who don't have these types of things, so you can use technology, to trigger, to remind people. And typically a learning management system has all of these things where you say, okay, you are meant to do this, you're meant to do that course, you're meant to study this, you're meant to take this assessment. All of those things can be driven by the kind of technology that my colleagues and I, James, and the rest of our team at Learning Impact are very excited about. So these are things that we can also, support you with if you are interested. Thanks so much, James, for sharing from your own organization. Yeah, and I guess James is responding. Thumbs up to James there. He's responding to, the question around what other principles or practices will you suggest to enhancing onboarding. Yeah, good. Anybody else? Let's see, more questions. All right. You're welcome. You're welcome, James. Yeah. Any thoughts, questions before we go? We are wrapping up.
I just wanted to add something. In terms of that example you gave about, showing the new starter everything, I feel like in some cases it could kind of be like a double-edged sword, because you're going to overwhelm this person, and this person might come in and say, oh my God, this organization is so ridiculous. Like, they don't have anything sorted. They don't have their, they don't know what they are doing. This is ridiculous. I can't work in this kind of place. It's too disorganized. It's not structured. It might turn people off. So I think another way of doing it is, as opposed to just throwing the new starter into the deep end, you can maybe just give them, make it, instead of practical, just show them theoretically, like, okay, this is what the job is about, as opposed to actually expecting them to just jump in and go diving into the deep end. Just let them know that, okay, this is what is to expect. Be realistic, but at the same time, you have to gauge it sort of. You don't want to overwhelm people or, just scare them away, like make them think that you guys are not doing anything at all.
No, I mean, I get your point, Tracy. I mean, the only thing I would say is, you don't want to, you don't have to be disorganized. So I don't think that's what you want to convey to people. So there can be very organized, well synchronized and simulated work. So it's not like you're just throwing things at them. You are saying, this is, like you said, theoretically, this is all remember, you have a good job scorecard. This is what is expected. This is the universe of our clients. This is the entirety of the role and the expectations. Yes, you can say that to somebody in a very organized way. So I wouldn't think that because the work is plenty, it means it is necessarily disorganized. I don't know if you get my point. Yeah. But, or it is chaotic. So you can be very organized, but the work is still plenty, you know. But I agree with you that, again, it depends on the role. So at different levels in an organization, remember, there's different levels of complexity, right? If it's a very senior role, a top role, then you expect the people to be used to complexity, right? If it is a very technical role, you expect the person to understand technicalities, you know, and be able to cope with the technical demands. So I agree with you, certainly. You don't want to overwhelm people, but you also want people to know if there are different jobs. There are some jobs that are, you remember we talked about it, Tracy, tayloristic jobs. There are jobs that are like, your job is to move a needle from here and put it in this box. That's not very complex. So all I require from you is 100 needles in the box. It doesn't get more complex than that. But there are jobs that require you to think on your feet, to be imaginative, to engage with clients, and so on. And the problem is that because we are creatures of habit, this is the challenge, Tracy, about this discussion. And I understand you completely and the perspective you shared. But because we are creatures of habit, if people get used to eating small morsels of challenges and food for a long period, the day you introduce them to hard things and complex things, then they say, oh no, this wasn't what I remember when I worked in the investment bank many years ago, the first day we introduced, what do you call it, Tracy? Targets. Imagine working in a bank, one of the most successful financial institutions in Nigeria at the time. And from 1989, when it was founded, to 2004, no employee had ever been given a target. Think about this. Then all of a sudden, one day, we finished a meeting and the MD says, from today, everybody will have a target. Some people resigned that day. Some people started crying in the room, that I never thought that I would come and work in a bank where they give me targets. You see? So all the targets that the bank has been achieving since is two people that have been doing the target too. So there is merit to what you are saying. You don't want to overwhelm people. You certainly don't want to make people think that you are disorganized or chaotic. You want to strike the balance. Yeah. So your point is very well taken and very well supported, even by evidence. You don't want to do those things, but at the same time, you want to be able to show people, the immensity of what is expected of them, so that they can start to prepare to grapple with that immensity. There are different ways to get to the market, as the Yoruba proverb said. So some people's approach is they throw you into the deep end. That can be very chaotic. Some people's approach is that they sort of support you gently through the process. That's great. But again, it all depends on the organization and the culture of the organization. The organization that, I was referring to, by the time in the early 2000s at IBTC, the culture became throw you into the deep end, sink or swim. In fact, that expression, sink or swim, became part of the language of the organization. But I'm sure if you go to the organization today, you won't hear that language. So that's the interesting thing, Tracy, that organizations too change and evolve depending on where they are on their journey. So there's a time to sink or swim. That my aunt that we are talking about, that I was talking about, I'm not sure that today, if you went to my aunt's house, she would apply the same process of throwing the housemaid into the deep end on the first day. Sometimes these things are contextual. They have to do with where the organization is in their journey. And that's why as HR people, we need to understand it, because sometimes we need to see where are we in that journey and amend and align the culture. I don't know if I'm making sense, Tracy. Yeah?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But your points are well taken. Osamuyi says, my onboarding experience with Globalcom was awesome. it is necessary to be tough from the start. Exactly. You see, but think about it, Osamu, based on what I just said. Where was Globalcom 11 years ago? Globalcom 11 years ago was pretty much a startup. You know, after a while, you will get to that same company now, and it's running like civil service. And people are, and you are wondering, apologies to civil servants, but it's just an expression, like after a while, you now become so successful that things sort of like pipe down, and it happens. So there's a time for everything, and the journey of an organization, from its startup and entrepreneurial phase to when it reaches its peak and when it goes into a sort of a plateau, organizations evolve in different ways. And sometimes you get to that plateau part and then the organization says, oh no, we can't be plateauing. We can't be coasting. We need to push again. I mean, there are clients we have today who are very successful businesses, and they are telling us at this time that they are worried that they are too complacent. My colleagues are here. I won't mention names. That complacency has crept into their culture because they have become so successful. And now the owners and the shareholders are worried that we need to start to put some fire under the bomb of employees because we are sort of like complacent. So Tracy, you see, that organization has now reached a level that they are saying, let's ignite the fire, So it's part of the life cycle of organizations, and that is how we all keep pushing and getting better. Yeah. Excellent contributions, questions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much in terms of your participation and your contributions and your thoughts. I hope that we have learned from the rich perspectives shared by participants over the last 10 minutes where we had an open mic. But essentially, we had a goal when we started. We said we wanted everyone who is part of this lesson, who is part of this conversation, to be able to explain those theoretical and empirical foundations that support onboarding. Remember, evidence-based management. We don't want people just doing what is anecdotal, what is fancy, what is a fad, what is popular. We want us to do everything anchored on solid evidence, scientific evidence. Yeah. So we started from there. Then I shared a few thoughts, particularly the story of my time in King's College and the onboarding system at King's College and how that shaped my understanding of onboarding from very early on, and how I could compare it and contrast it with some of those theories, and then shared a few thoughts about some philosophy and practice and best practice in onboarding. And then we talked about that 3-step process: preparing for the onboarding, educating and exposing your employees during the onboarding, and supporting your employees with body program and with measuring and feedback and evaluation. And we got plenty of examples from Tracy, from James, from Osamuyi, from Angela and others who asked questions and who spoke. And if I forgot your name, please pardon me, and they gave us, James gave us insights, about the things that they do in their organizations and some of these practices that have been valuable, and Dickens, yes, thank you so much. Dickens shared the playbook, which was very valuable. So again, very rich experience, and I hope that we've moved the needle. I can see a couple of participants indicating that we have. So thanks for that feedback, Kene. Thanks, Hassana. That we've moved the needle. That's what we want to do, of your thinking, of your understanding, and of your practice of strategic human resources management. Onboarding is one of those key high performance work practices that predict better organizational outcomes, including higher levels of productivity, motivation, job satisfaction, and retention of key talent. And it is an important part of the employee life cycle. So as we end the program today, we want to encourage those of you who are new to the platform. Please, you can reach out to my colleagues, Victor, as well as Learning Impact Model, who is at the back of that is Joy, and Chibuzo, and so on, and they can connect you immediately if you share your WhatsApp number, or they can share the link right away to join the WhatsApp group. I think that will be very efficacious, so that you can just click that link and you can join the WhatsApp group where the conversations continue, because it's not just, we do this only once a month, but we're on the WhatsApp group 24/7, every 52 weeks in a year. and you can join us and continue learning from us on that WhatsApp group. Yeah. Thank you so much, Osamuyi. Thank you, everyone who has joined us. As usual, so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye, with my cracked voice. Okay, so there it is. Learning Impact has shared the WhatsApp. Please feel free to click it and join us immediately. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of this loving, lovely weekend. And we look forward to seeing you. Yes, I'm spotting my red. Yeah. And we look forward to seeing you next month on another exciting and impactful journey of improving our HR capabilities. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming and for your excellent participation.
Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. We are most
Thank
grateful.
you so much, sir. Bye.
Bye-bye.